Hi everyone, in this video series we want to address a topic that affects many people, probably unfortunately also in your environment, and it's eating disorders. By doing that, we want to raise awareness and understanding for the reality of eating disorders, and for this purpose we also did some research and conducted 2 experiments with young female social media users. This specific video now aims to tell you how to communicate the sensitive topic in social media and also explain some of the underlying psychological processes. So let's start right away. Why communicating this topic in social media at all? No matter whether it's Snapchat, BeReal, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube or TikTok, social networks are all over the place and they are still growing in popularity, and current numbers also suggest that this trend will continue in the coming years. Unfortunately, this is not only exciting and great, because this trend also offers some risks. And one of the most talked about ones, especially for young adults and adolescents, is the promotion of unrealistic beauty standards, which may lead to the development, or at least foster it, of eating disorders. However, on the other side, social media also offers a unique opportunity for persuasive communication of preventive health messages. This happens through interaction, feedback, and personal bonds with communicators, which we will take a closer look at now. These bonds are formed with social media influencers, which are sometimes also called SMEs. And they are primarily active on social media. They have a high reach and they build intimate bonds with their followers. And also by doing that, they have a significant impact on them with their videos and posts. To date, the persuasiveness of social media influencers has been used predominantly to achieve commercial goals and so-called influencer marketing that we probably already heard about. And this is also what has been studied in the scientific community mostly. However, with doing that, it's not the whole potential of digital opinion leaders that we have explored, because instead of being used to facilitate consumerism and unattainable social norms, they might also speak on health messages and do this in a really great way and use their unique position for the followers' benefit and also for the benefit of greater society. So let's take a closer look at how exactly that works and why are social media influencers so persuasive and have such a great impact. By doing that, we have to talk about parasocial phenomena, and this is not something like ghost thing. It's really actually a big thing in science right now. Parasocial phenomena cover the whole intimate, perceived illusion of having a close relationship and interaction with influencers, for example. We already talked about it, but what exactly do we mean by that? Media consumption often creates the illusion of being in an interaction with a media personality, such as an influencer. And this feeling of connection with a media personality during the consumption of media is also referred to as parasocial interaction. This illusion of interaction goes way back, and it already existed actually with TV personalities and radio hosts, so it's nothing new. But social media got this on a whole new level. By liking and sharing posts and writing direct messages to influencers, users can now also share something about themselves. And even if there is no direct interaction with influencers, this enhances the perceived illusion of being in a real two-way conversation with a famous other, and this might really foster parasocial interaction. Now, if parasocial actions are experienced regularly, which means we consume the content of an influencer on a daily basis, for example, we also form a so-called parasocial relationship on the longer hand with this influencer. And this parasocial relationship often resembles one-sided friendships and offers the illusion of a close relationship. Now, why is it so important to know about parasocial interactions and relationships when talking about persuasive communication? Parasocial interactions and relationships can have a strong impact on social media users. If a person experiences a strong parasocial relationship, they also tend to have higher attention. This means that they pay more attention to the messages by the influencer. They also react stronger emotionally to the messages, and also they process the information more intensely. Moreover, which is also quite important, is that we tend to trust people that we feel we know more. This means that we think the messages are more credible when they come from an influencer with whom we already have an established relationship. This ultimately also leads to media users having less critical distance to content of influencers, and also hence makes it easier to convince them of presented messages. And this can actually help also in a bad way when they are more convinced that they should buy a certain product, but it can also help in a good way when they are more convinced to follow healthy behavior, for example. So to briefly summarize, the illusion of being in an interaction with an influencer can create a long-term relationship with them, and that relationship makes the media users perceive them more as trustworthy communicators. Now, back to the topic of eating disorders. Eating disorders is a super sensitive topic, as you probably know, which, depending also on experiences and predispositions, can trigger different and also negative feelings, such as fear, in media users. Now, taking a look at theoretical models that can help, one theoretical model that explains reactions related to fear is the extended parallel process model. The extended parallel process model examines how people respond to threatening messages and what factors actually influence their decisions to take, in best case, protective action, or in worst case, also show reactance by engaging in even worse unhealthy behavior. It involves several key components, such as perceived threat and perceived efficacy, which we will explain now in a little bit more detail. To affect a reaction from media users, our messages need to talk about two basic components regarding the threat, about the severity of the threat and also about susceptibility. Namely, the threat must seem severe enough to cause harm, and the media user must feel likely to experience that harm. With the help of these two aspects, the media users get the feeling that the topic is important for them, and they get motivated to actually pay attention to further information on it. Back to the example of eating disorders, this means that media users would need to feel at risk to personally develop an eating disorder or to have a loved one suffer from it, and that suffering from an eating disorder is something very serious. Now, for fear induction to cause a positive reaction, the media user also needs to feel response and self-efficacy. And this is a person's belief that acting according to the recommendations is helpful in preventing the threat, and that it is also realistic and doable for them to act accordingly to the recommendation. Staying with the example of eating disorders, one's self-efficacy against the exemplary threat of muscle loss, for example, due to malnutrition, would be their ability to find a way to eat enough nutrition. Now, if a person feels like the recommendations how to eat enough nutrition seems doable for the person, plus this person feels that this will indeed help her or him counter malnutrition and muscle loss, they feel high self-efficacy and response efficacy, which is actually great because we need that to act healthy. So this now in the end relates to fear control, the process by which individuals manage their fear. If overwhelming fear makes the recipient feel helpless because the threat is too high and they do not feel that acting healthy according to the recommendations actually helps, or that they are not able to do so, they might engage in maladaptive fear control processes like denial or avoidance, which is something that we do not want. This might actually make things worse than before for the person. That is something that we need to avoid by any chance. The good news is there's also something good as an outcome with these messages. And the better way to handle fear and what we communicators want to achieve actually is adaptive danger control. Here the media user feels that he or she can actively improve the situation and engages in behaviors which reduce the threat, like taking preventive actions, eating more, for example, or seeking further information. Briefly summarized, how do we get this adaptive reaction which we want? When individuals perceive the threat as significant, but also believe in their efficacy, they are more likely to engage in danger control responses, which are the responses that we want. Plus, you should keep in mind what you already heard earlier in this video on the power of parasocial phenomena with SMEs. Hence, these messages in which you first explain how dangerous eating disorders are and that they can affect anyone, and afterwards help by giving advice on how to effectively deal with eating disorders in a doable way, they are most effective, but also especially when they are presented by a social media influencer with whom followers have a long-term trustful relationship. That's it for our video now on the psychological processes behind health messages on social media. There are, of course, more theories, more processes, but these are, in our opinion, two of the most important ones. Make sure to check out also our other two videos, and thank you very much for your attention.